The beginning. A child taken. It was a bright, calm morning on Avalon 7, a human colony nestled on the edge of the galaxy. The air was fresh, the skies were blue, and laughter echoed across the small settlement. The colony was home to only a few thousand people, mostly families who had left Earth in search of a peaceful life among the stars. 8-year-old Ethan loved mornings like this. He ran through the open fields behind his family's home, chasing butterflies with his wooden toy sword. His mother, Sarah, watched him from the kitchen window, smiling as she prepared breakfast. "Don't go too far, Ethan," she called out. "I won't, Mom," he shouted back, his voice full of excitement. The colony was a safe place. There were no predators, no crime, and no reason to worry. But that morning, something strange happened. As Ethan played, a low humming sound filled the air. It was faint at first, like a distant machine. The bird stopped singing, and the gentle breeze seemed to still. Ethan paused, looking up at the sky. A strange light began to flicker above him, golden and pulsating, like a living star. "Wow," Ethan whispered, his eyes wide with wonder. Back in the colony, Sarah noticed the light too. Her heart skipped a beat. Something about it didn't feel right. She stepped outside, wiping her hands on her apron. "Ethan, come back here." But Ethan couldn't hear her. The humming grew louder, and the light descended, wrapping around him like a glowing cocoon. He tried to run, but his feet wouldn't move. "Mom, help," he cried, his voice trembling with fear. Sarah dropped everything and sprinted toward him. "Ethan, hold on." Other colonists came out of their homes, staring at the strange light. Some shouted warnings, while others stood frozen in shock. A few grabbed their communication devices, calling for help. But it was too late. Before Sarah could reach him, the light grew blindingly bright. With a deafening crack, it shot upward, taking Ethan with it. He vanished into the sky, leaving nothing behind but silence and the faint smell of ozone. Sarah fell to her knees, her hands clutching the empty space where her son had been just seconds ago. Tears streamed down her face. No, Ethan. The colony was in chaos. People ran in all directions, shouting and pointing at the sky. A few claimed they had seen a massive ship cloaked in the clouds. Others said it was the work of the mysterious Galactic Empire, known for their ruthless experiments on other species. The colony's leader, Commander Harris, quickly took control of the situation. He was a tall, stern man with years of experience dealing with crises. He stood in the middle of the main square, shouting orders. "Activate the planetary scanners. I want to know what just happened. Everyone, stay calm and return to your homes." Within minutes, the colony's surveillance team picked up traces of an alien ship leaving orbit. It was massive, sleek, and unmistakably imperial. The Galactic Empire had taken Ethan. Harris clenched his fists as he watched the ship's trajectory on the screen. "They'd gone too far this time," he muttered under his breath. The Galactic Empire had a long history of treating humanity as an inferior species. They rarely interacted with human colonies, but when they did, it was always for their own gain. Stories of abductions and cruel experiments were whispered across the galaxy, but most humans thought they were just rumors. Now, the colony of Avalon 7 knew the truth. Back in her home, Sarah sat in silence, clutching the small photo of Ethan. Her husband, Daniel, tried to comfort her, but his own face was pale with shock. "We'll get him back," he said, though his voice wavered with uncertainty. "How?" Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. "They're too powerful. We're just humans." "We're more than that," Daniel said, his eyes narrowing with determination. "And they'll regret taking our son." Meanwhile, in the colony's command center, Commander Harris prepared a message to Earth's central government. He knew they needed help, and they needed it fast. "Send this out on all secure channels," he ordered his team. "We're declaring an emergency. Tell them the Empire has crossed the line." As the sun set over Avalon 7, The once peaceful colony was left in shock and fear. But amidst the despair, a quiet determination began to take root. The Galactic Empire had made a grave mistake. Far above the planet, aboard the Imperial ship, Ethan sat alone in a cold, metallic cell. His small hands trembled as he hugged his knees to his chest. Strange, glowing machines surrounded him, and alien voices echoed from the hallway outside. "Mom, Dad," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. For the first time in his life, Ethan felt truly alone. But he didn't know that far below, his parents, his colony, and all of humanity were already preparing to fight for him. The Galactic Empire had taken a human child. They wouldn't get away with it. Humanity's response. The warning. The news of Ethan's abduction spread quickly across Avalon 7. The once peaceful colony was now a hive of fear, anger, and determination. Families locked their doors, children stayed inside, and every colonist looked to Commander Harris for answers. In the dimly lit command center, Harris stood before a holographic map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated the path of the Imperial ship that had taken Ethan. The lines traced back to an uncharted region of space known only as Sector 9, a place feared by most for its strong Imperial presence. "This wasn't random," Harris said, addressing his team. "The Empire has been watching us, studying us, and now they think they can take from us without consequences." One of his officers, a young woman named Lieutenant Vega, stepped forward. "Sir, the central government on Earth has acknowledged our emergency signal, but they're asking us to stand down. They don't want to provoke the Empire." Harris slammed his fist on the table. "Stand down. They took one of our children. If we don't act, what's stopping them from taking more? The Empire needs to understand that humanity isn't weak. Not anymore." Vega hesitated, then nodded. "What are your orders, sir?" Harris took a deep breath. "We're sending them a message, a warning they can't ignore." In a small underground facility, Harris and his team prepared the transmission. The room was filled with advanced equipment, much of it acquired through secret deals and black market trades. Humanity might not have the resources of the Empire, but they had their ingenuity, and they had their anger. The message was simple but powerful. A hologram of Harris appeared on the screen. His expression was cold, his voice steady. "To the leaders of the Galactic Empire," he began, "you have taken one of our children. This act will not go unanswered. Return him immediately, or face the consequences. We may be human, but we are not helpless. We've been watching you, learning from you, and now we are ready. Run while you still can." The message ended with an image of Earth's fleet, a collection of sleek, heavily armed ships that had been kept secret for decades. Harris knew the Empire's spies would recognize the design. It wasn't just a bluff. Meanwhile, Sarah and Daniel sat quietly in their home. The house felt empty without Ethan's laughter. On the table before them lay a small worn teddy bear, Ethan's favorite toy. "He's out there," Sarah said softly, her voice trembling. "Scared and alone. How can we just sit here and wait?" Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. "We won't wait. If the Empire thinks they can take our son and get away with it, they're wrong. They have no idea what we're capable of." Sarah nodded, though tears still glistened in her eyes. She wasn't a soldier, but she would do whatever it took to bring Ethan home. On the other side of the galaxy, the Galactic Empire received the transmission. The Imperial Council, a group of alien leaders dressed in ornate robes, watched the hologram with a mix of amusement and annoyance. "Humans," one of them sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. "So dramatic. Do they really think they can threaten us?" Another council member, a pale-skinned alien with glowing red eyes, leaned forward. "They're becoming bolder. This is not the first time humans have defied us. Perhaps it's time we reminded them of their place." The head of the council, a towering figure with a deep mechanical voice, raised a hand to silence the room. "Do not underestimate them," he said. Humanity has survived wars and disasters that would have wiped out other species. There is strength in them, even if they hide it well. But they are still inferior, another council member argued. Their technology is no match for ours. Perhaps, the leader said, his glowing eyes narrowing. But let us not forget, their defiance has always come at a cost. Prepare the fleet. If they wish to challenge the Empire, we will show them what true power looks like. Back on Avalon 7, the colonists prepared for the worst. Harris knew that sending the warning was risky, but he also knew they couldn't back down. In the command center, Lieutenant Vega approached Harris with a grim expression. "Sir, we've intercepted a transmission from the Empire. They're mobilizing their fleet." Harris nodded, his jaw set. "Good. Let them come. They've made a grave mistake, and we'll make sure they regret it." The colonists worked through the night, preparing their defenses and readying their ships. They weren't just fighting for Ethan, they were fighting for their future. Far above the planet, in the cold, silent void of space, the stars seemed to shimmer with anticipation. The warning had been sent. Now, it was only a matter of time before the Empire responded. In his cell aboard the Imperial ship, Ethan sat quietly, staring at the metallic walls. He didn't know what was happening back on Avalon 7. He didn't know that his parents, his colony, and all of humanity were ready to fight for him. But he held on to a small glimmer of hope, a belief that somehow he would see his family again. The Galactic Empire thought humanity was weak. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The Empire's arrogance. High above Avalon 7, the Galactic Empire's massive starship cruised silently through the void. The ship, called Eminence, was sleek, dark, and bristling with alien technology. Inside, the crew moved with cold precision, their faces emotionless. To them, humans were nothing more than another primitive species, a minor annoyance in a galaxy they ruled with an iron fist. In the heart of the ship, Dr. Xylor, an Imperial scientist, stood in his laboratory. He was tall and thin, with pale skin and piercing green eyes that glowed faintly in the dim light. Around him, machines hummed softly, their screens displaying strange alien symbols and biological data. In the center of the room, a containment pod held Ethan, the abducted human child. The boy was unconscious, surrounded by a faint blue light that seemed to keep him in a deep sleep. Xylor studied him with fascination. "So small, so fragile," the scientist murmured, his voice smooth and cold. "And yet, humans have always been a puzzle. They are weak, yet they survive. Primitive, yet they adapt. What makes them so stubborn?" An Imperial officer entered the lab, his metallic armor clinking with each step. He saluted Xylor before speaking. "Dr. Xylor, the human colony has sent us a message. A warning." Xylor raised an eyebrow, amused. "A warning? From humans?" He chuckled, the sound echoing eerily in the sterile lab. "What did they say?" The officer played the message. Harris's voice filled the room, firm and defiant. "Return the child immediately, or face the consequences. We may be human, but we are not helpless. Run while you still can." When the message ended, Xylor laughed louder. Such bold words from such a small species. They truly believe they can challenge us. The officer hesitated. "The humans have shown unexpected strength in the past. Doctor, perhaps we should consider the warning seriously." Xylor waved his hand dismissively. "Nonsense. They're bluffing. Humans have always been pests, nothing more. If they dare to act against us, we will crush them like insects." The officer frowned but didn't argue. He knew better than to question the Empire's confidence. On the bridge of the Eminence, Commander Drixus, the ship's captain, watched the holographic map of the galaxy. His sharp eyes followed the red dot marking Avalon 7. "Prepare the fleet," Drixus ordered his crew. "We will remind the humans of their place. Send additional ships to their sector. If they resist, destroy them." One of his officers hesitated. "Sir, should we report this to the council? They may prefer to handle this matter diplomatically." Drixus smirked, his dark eyes glinting with pride. "Diplomacy is for the weak. The Council entrusted us with enforcing imperial law. Let the humans bark all they want. They are no threat to us." Back in the lab, Silor continued his experiments. He leaned over Ethan's containment pod, adjusting the machines monitoring the boy's vital signs. "This one is special," Tylor said to himself. "Something about him feels different." The scientist pulled up a holographic display, filled with charts and diagrams. He analyzed Ethan's DNA, muttering to himself as he worked. "Fascinating," he whispered. "Their genetic structure is so ordinary, yet their resilience is remarkable. Perhaps I'll find the key to their stubborn survival here. And when I do, the Empire will become even stronger." Silor's assistant, a younger scientist with wide, nervous eyes, hesitated before speaking. "Doctor, what if the humans retaliate? They've been known to fight back fiercely when provoked." Silor glanced at his assistant, his expression cold. "Let them try. It will only give us more opportunities to study them. Besides, the Empire has never lost a war. The humans will fall, just like all the others." The assistant nodded, though his unease remained. Far away, in the heart of the Galactic Empire, the Imperial Council convened in a grand, towering chamber. The council members watched the humans' warning message with varying reactions, some amused, others indifferent. "The humans grow bolder," one council member said, her voice smooth and calculated. "This is not the first time they've defied us." "They are insignificant," another replied, his tone dripping with disdain. "Their warnings are empty threats." The council leader, the same towering figure who had spoken before, leaned forward in his ornate chair. His glowing eyes narrowed as he studied Harris's face on the hologram. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "but the humans have surprised us before. Their resourcefulness is unsettling." The room fell silent. The leader's words carried weight, even among the arrogant council members. "What do you propose?" one of them asked. The leader's lips curled into a faint, cruel smile. "Let the fleet handle them for now. If the humans prove troublesome, we will deal with them ourselves. But remember this, every act of defiance only gives us more reason to break them completely." As the Empire's fleet prepared for war, the Eminence continued its journey. Ethan remained unconscious in the containment pod, unaware of the chaos his abduction had caused. But even in his sleep, something inside him stirred. A quiet defiance, a spark of human resilience. The Empire believed they could crush humanity. They didn't realize they had just ignited a fire that would burn across the stars. The first strike. The Galactic Empire's fleet approached Avalon 7 like a storm on the horizon. Their ships were massive and menacing, their sleek designs reflecting cold efficiency. On board the command ship, Eminence, Commander Drixus stood with his hands behind his back, watching the planet grow larger on the view screen. "Status?" Drixus asked. "Fleet is in formation, sir," one of his officers reported. "We've detected minimal defensive capabilities on the planet. Their technology is primitive." Drixus smirked. "As expected. Begin positioning the blockade. Let's remind these humans who controls the galaxy." On Avalon 7, the colony was anything but unprepared. Inside the command center, Commander Harris studied the Imperial fleet's movement on the holographic display. Red dots surrounded the planet, indicating the ship's positions. "They're setting up a blockade," Lieutenant Vega said, her voice steady but tense. "They're trying to intimidate us." Harris didn't look away from the display. "Then it's time to show them what they've underestimated." The colonists had been working nonstop since Ethan's abduction. Harris had mobilized every resource at their disposal, from outdated planetary defenses to experimental weapons designed in secret. While the Empire saw them as weak, Avalon 7 had quietly prepared for this day. "Activate the disruptors," Harris ordered. "Yes, sir," Vega replied. High above the planet, the Empire's ships began to detect strange signals, Their systems flickered, and the smooth hum of their engines faltered. "Commander," one of Trixis's officers shouted, "we're experiencing interference. Some of our systems are failing." Trixis frowned. "What kind of interference?" "It's coming from the planet, sir. They're using some sort of disruption field to interfere with our communications and targeting systems." Trixis's smirk faded, replaced by a cold glare. "Impressive. It seems the humans have more fight in them than we thought. Launch the drones. Let's see how long they can keep this up." From the surface of Avalon 7, streaks of light shot into the sky. The colony's automated defenses came alive, firing at the incoming Imperial drones. These machines, small and agile, were designed to strike quickly and overwhelm their targets. But the colonists had planned for this. Harris's team had deployed decoy systems, confusing the drones and drawing them into pre-planned kill zones. The first wave of drones was obliterated before it could reach the ground. In the command center, cheers erupted as the defense systems held strong. "Good work, people," Harris shouted. "But this is just the beginning. Keep those disruptors running and prepare for their next move." Aboard the Eminence, Trixis watched the destruction of the first wave with growing frustration. "They're more organized than we anticipated," one officer said hesitantly. "Enough games," Trixis growled. "Deploy the frigates. I want their defenses destroyed. Leave no survivors." The frigates descended, their massive cannons aimed at the colony. The ground shook as the first blast struck, sending plumes of dirt and fire into the air. Buildings crumbled, and colonists scrambled for cover. Sarah and Daniel, still reeling from Ethan's abduction, had joined the other families in the colony's underground shelters. The air was filled with the sound of explosions and distant alarms. "Will we be safe here?" Sarah whispered, clutching Daniel's arm. "We have to trust Harris and the others," Daniel replied, though his own voice was strained with fear. "They won't let the Empire win." In the command center, Harris remained calm despite the chaos. "Focus fire on their lead frigate," he ordered. The colonists' remaining weapons locked onto the massive ship, targeting its engines and weak points. The frigate shuddered under the barrage, flames erupting from its hull. Moments later, it exploded, lighting up the sky. The destruction of the frigate sent a clear message. Avalon 7 would not fall without a fight. Back on the Eminence, Trixis clenched his fists. "Enough of this," he roared. "Prepare the orbital cannon. If they won't surrender, we'll turn their colony to ashes." "Sir," an officer hesitated, "using the cannon will destroy the entire settlement. The child we took, he won't survive." Trixis sneered. "The child is insignificant. If these humans want war, we'll give them war." Harris and his team watched as the Eminence began charging its orbital cannon. The massive weapon glowed with deadly energy, a clear sign of the destruction it was about to unleash. "They're going to wipe us out," Vega said, her voice trembling. "Not if we act first," Harris replied. "Ready the strike team." "The strike team?" Vega asked, surprised. Harris nodded. "We can't win this from the ground. If we want to survive, we have to hit them where it hurts, on their ship." In the underground shelters, Sarah and Daniel huddled with the other colonists. The ground trembled as the battle raged above. "We can't just sit here," Sarah said suddenly. "What can we do?" Daniel asked. Sarah's eyes were fierce. "They have our son. We have to fight for him, no matter the cost." Daniel nodded. "Then let's make sure they regret ever taking him." As the Empire prepared to deliver its final blow, the colonists of Avalon 7 stood united. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outmatched. Far above, aboard the Eminence, the Empire's arrogance had blinded them to one simple truth: humanity was not weak, and they were about to prove it. Infiltration. The fight for survival. The strike team moved quickly through the dense forest outside Avalon 7's main colony. Their destination, the Imperial command ship, Eminence. Commander Harris led the team, his face grim but determined. Behind him, Lieutenant Vega carried a compact but powerful EMP device, a last-minute creation by the colony's engineers. If they could get it onto the Eminence, it would disable the ship's systems long enough to turn the tide of the battle. "This is our only chance," Harris said, his voice low. "The Empire thinks we're weak. Let's show them what humans can do." The team reached a clearing where a small Imperial shuttle had landed earlier. It was guarded by 2 alien soldiers, their tall, armored forms blending with the shadows. Harris raised his hand, signaling the team to stop. He gestured to one of his scouts, who crept forward silently. Moments later, the scout returned, giving a thumbs up. "They're distracted," the scout whispered. Harris nodded. "Take them out quietly. We can't risk alerting the ship." The team moved with precision, taking down the guards without a sound. Once the area was clear, Harris and his team climbed into the shuttle. The controls were alien, with glowing symbols and strange levers, but Vega had studied enough Imperial tech to manage. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and the team ascended into the dark sky. As they approached the Eminence, the massive ship loomed like a predator waiting to strike. "Stay calm," Harris said, sensing the tension in his team. "We've trained for this. Stick to the plan." Inside the Eminence, Commander Drixus watched the orbital cannon charge with satisfaction. "Time to end this," he said, his voice cold. "Prepare to fire." Before his officers could respond, a warning light flashed on the console. "Commander," one of them said, alarmed, "an unauthorized shuttle is approaching the hangar bay." Drixus's eyes narrowed. "Humans," he hissed. "They're bolder than I thought. Deploy the guards and destroy that shuttle." The strike team felt the ship's automated defenses activate. Small drones swarmed toward the shuttle, their weapons firing in rapid bursts. "Evasive maneuvers," Harris shouted. Vega gripped the controls tightly, weaving the shuttle through the barrage. The team's gunners fired back, taking out several drones, but more kept coming. "We're almost there," Vega yelled. With a final burst of speed, the shuttle slipped past the defenses and into the hangar bay. The team barely had time to disembark before Imperial guards stormed in, their weapons raised. "Cover fire," Harris ordered. The team spread out, taking cover behind crates and machinery. Blaster fire filled the air as the humans fought against the larger, better-equipped alien soldiers. Vega clutched the EMP device tightly, her heart pounding. "I need to get this to the core," she shouted over the noise. "We'll cover you," Harris said. "Go." Vega sprinted toward the exit, 2 team members following as her escorts. The rest of the team held their ground, fighting fiercely. Harris fired his rifle, taking down an advancing guard. "Keep them distracted," he shouted. The Imperial forces were relentless, but the humans fought with desperation and resolve. Meanwhile, Vega and her escorts navigated the winding corridors of the Eminence. The ship's alien design was disorienting, but they followed the map they had memorized back on Avalon 7. "This way," one of the escorts said, pointing to a passage leading deeper into the ship. They reached the core, a massive chamber filled with glowing machinery and humming energy conduits. Vega placed the EMP device at the base of the main console and began arming it. "How much time do we have?" one of the escorts asked. 30 seconds, Vega replied, her fingers working quickly. "We need to move fast." As the device activated, alarms blared throughout the ship. "They know we're here," Vega said. "Let's go." Back in the hangar bay, Harris and the remaining team members heard the alarms. "They'd done it," Harris said with a grim smile. "Now we just need to get out of here." The guard suddenly hesitated as the ship's lights flickered and the hum of its systems grew erratic. "What's happening?" one of them shouted. Harris used the moment of confusion to rally his team. "Fall back to the shuttle." The humans moved quickly, covering each other as they retreated. On the bridge, Commander Drixus slammed his fist against the console. "Find the intruders," he roared. "Shut down that device." But it was too late. The EMP detonated, sending a wave of energy through the ship. Lights went out, machines stopped, and the orbital cannon powered down with a low whine. The Eminence was dead in space. The strike team made it back to the shuttle just as the EMP's effects spread. Vega and her escorts joined them, breathless but triumphant. "We did it," Vega said. Harris nodded. "Now let's get back to the colony before they recover." The shuttle's engines roared to life, and the team escaped the crippled ship. As the Eminence drifted in silence, Commander Drixus seethed with rage. "This isn't over," he growled. "The humans will pay for this." But deep down, a seed of doubt had been planted. The Empire had underestimated humanity before. Now, they were starting to realize their mistake. On Avalon 7, the colonists cheered as the Imperial fleet began to retreat. For the first time, they had struck back against the Galactic Empire, and won. But Harris knew this was only the beginning. The Empire would return, stronger and more determined. "We'll be ready," he said quietly, gazing at the stars. "The Empire strikes back." The silence aboard the Eminence was shattered as emergency systems flickered back to life. Dim red lights illuminated the ship's corridors, and a low alarm echoed throughout. Commander Drixus stood on the bridge, his jaw clenched in fury. "Status report," he barked. "Primary systems are offline, Commander," an officer stammered. "The EMP has disabled most of our critical functions. We're adrift." Drixus's glare could have melted steel. "And the humans? They've escaped, sir. Their shuttle broke through our defenses before we could respond." Drixus slammed his fist on the console. "This is unacceptable. How did a handful of primitives cripple one of the Empire's finest ships?" No one dared to answer. On Avalon 7, the colonists worked tirelessly to repair the damage from the earlier attack. The atmosphere was tense. While they had won a small victory, everyone knew it wouldn't last. In the command center, Harris studied the holographic map of the surrounding space. The Eminence was still visible, floating just outside the colony's atmosphere. "They're regrouping," Harris said, his voice grim. "We've bought ourselves time, but not much." Lieutenant Vega stood beside him, her expression weary but determined. "The fleet won't stay scattered for long." "What's the plan, Commander?" Harris took a deep breath. "We hit them again. This time, we take the fight to them before they can recover." Back on the Eminence, Drixus paced the bridge like a caged animal. "Send a distress signal to the nearest Imperial fleet," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." The communications officer hesitated. "The EMP has damaged our long-range transmitters. We can only send short-range signals." Drixus cursed under his breath. "Then prepare a counterstrike with what we have left. I refuse to let these humans humiliate us any further." As the Eminence prepared for a desperate counterattack, Harris and his team finalized their plans. "We'll send a second strike team to disable their remaining systems," Harris explained. "Meanwhile, the colony's defenses will focus on holding off any reinforcements." Vega frowned. "That's risky. What if they repair their weapons before we can disable them?" Harris looked at her, his eyes hard. "Then we won't have a colony left to defend. This is our only shot." The second strike team launched under cover of darkness, using the same stolen shuttle to approach the Eminence. This time, the Empire was ready. "Commander, an unauthorized shuttle is approaching again," an officer reported. Drixus sneered. "They're persistent, I'll give them that. Deploy all remaining drones and lock down the hangar bay. If they set foot on this ship, kill them." As the shuttle drew closer, Harris and his team braced themselves for the fight. Imperial drones swarmed toward them, their weapons firing relentlessly. "Evasive maneuvers," Harris shouted. Vega, piloting once again, pushed the shuttle to its limits. The small craft weaved through the barrage, narrowly avoiding destruction. "We're not going to make it," one team member muttered, his voice trembling. "Yes, we will," Harris said firmly. "Hold your fire until we're in range." The shuttle's gunners waited until the drones were almost on top of them before unleashing a precise volley of fire. Several drones exploded in fiery bursts, clearing a path to the hangar bay. "We're in," Vega shouted as the shuttle skidded to a halt inside the Eminence. The team disembarked quickly, weapons at the ready. This time, the hangar bay was heavily guarded. "Cover me," Harris yelled as blaster fire erupted around them. The humans fought with determination, using every bit of cover they could find. Despite being outnumbered, they pushed forward, determined to reach the ship's core. Drixus watched the battle unfold on a monitor, his anger boiling over. "Seal the lower decks," he commanded. "Trap them inside and flood the area with gas." "But sir," an officer hesitated, "our own soldiers." "I don't care." Drixus snapped. "Do it." In the lower decks, Harris's team encountered heavy resistance. The air grew thick as a hissing sound filled the corridor. "They're using gas," Vega shouted, pulling a mask from her pack. "Keep moving," Harris ordered. "We can't stop now." The team reached the core once again, but this time the Empire had reinforced it heavily. Automated turrets swiveled toward them, firing rapidly. "Take out those turrets," Harris shouted. The team split up, drawing the turret's fire while one member planted explosives on the core's main conduits. "Charges are set," the soldier called out. "Good," Harris said. "Everyone, fall back." As the team retreated, the explosives detonated, sending shockwaves through the Eminence. The lights flickered, and the ship shuddered violently. On the bridge, Drixus stumbled as the floor beneath him shook. "Report," he demanded. "Sir, the humans have destroyed the main power conduits. We're losing control of the ship." Drixus's rage turned to panic as he realized the gravity of the situation. "Evacuate the ship," he growled. "This battle is over." The strike team made it back to the shuttle just as the Eminence began to collapse. Fires spread through the corridors, and pieces of the ship broke away, tumbling into the planet's atmosphere. "We did it," Vega said breathlessly as the shuttle sped away. Harris nodded, though his expression remained grim. "This is just the beginning. The Empire won't let this go unanswered." On Avalon 7, the colonists watched as the Eminence fell from the sky, burning like a meteor. Cheers erupted, but Harris knew the fight was far from over. "They'll be back," he said quietly, looking toward the stars. "And we'll be ready." The final stand. Humanity's reckoning. The Galactic Empire did not waste time. Reinforcements arrived within days, a fleet of massive warships blotting out the sky over Avalon 7. This was no mere retaliation, it was an invasion. Commander Harris stood in the colony's war room, his face a mask of calm determination. The holographic display showed the Empire's fleet positioning itself for a full-scale assault. "They're not holding back this time," Harris said. "They want to wipe us out." Lieutenant Vega looked at the display, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "What's the plan, Commander? We can't hold off a fleet that size." Harris nodded grimly. "No, we can't. But we don't need to. We just need to survive long enough to send a message." The colony's engineers worked tirelessly, modifying an old communication relay to send a long-range distress signal. If they could alert other human colonies, there was a chance to rally a larger resistance. "We've boosted the signal strength," an engineer reported. "It should reach the nearest human settlements, but we'll need to hold the line for at least 6 hours." "Then we hold," Harris said firmly. "Whatever it takes." The first wave of Imperial forces descended on the colony like a storm. Dropships landed in the forests, deploying waves of armored soldiers. The colonists, armed with makeshift weapons and a fierce determination, met them head-on. Harris led the charge, his rifle blazing as he directed the defense. "Hold your positions," he shouted. "We can't let them reach the relay." Explosions rocked the battlefield as the colonists used every tactic they could think of: traps, ambushes, and guerrilla strikes. The Empire's soldiers were stronger and better equipped, But the humans fought with desperation, knowing this was their last stand. On board the Empire's flagship, the Dominion, Admiral Velera observed the battle with cold detachment. "These humans are persistent," she said, her voice tinged with contempt. "But persistence won't save them. Begin the orbital bombardment." An officer hesitated. "Admiral, our troops are still on the ground." "They're expendable," Velera replied. "Fire." The colony shook as the first blasts from the Dominion's cannons struck. Entire sections of the settlement were reduced to rubble. In the war room, Vega shouted over the chaos. "Commander, we've got incoming fire from orbit. The shields won't hold much longer." Harris clenched his fists. "Redirect all power to the shields. We just need a little more time." As the battle raged on, a small team of colonists managed to sneak aboard one of the Imperial dropships. Their mission, to disable the Dominion. The team, led by Vega, infiltrated the massive warship through a maintenance hatch. The corridors were eerily quiet, but they knew it wouldn't stay that way. "We head for the reactor core," Vega whispered. "Take it out, and we cripple their flagship." Back on the ground, Harris and the remaining colonists fought with everything they had. The air was thick with smoke, and the ground was littered with debris. "This is it," Harris muttered. "One way or another, it ends here." On the Dominion, Vega's team reached the reactor core, but the room was heavily guarded. "We don't have time for subtlety," Vega said. "Hit them hard." The team charged, catching the guards off guard with a barrage of gunfire. It was a brutal fight, but the humans managed to plant explosives on the reactor's main conduits. "Charges are set," Vega shouted. "We need to move." As the team retreated, alarms blared throughout the ship. Admiral Velera's face darkened as reports came in. "Admiral, the reactor core has been compromised. We're losing power. Evacuate the ship," Velera ordered, her voice cold. "This battle is lost." The Dominion shuddered as the explosives detonated, sending a chain reaction through the ship's systems. Vega's team barely made it to an escape pod before the flagship erupted in a massive explosion. On the ground, the colonists watched as the Dominion was consumed by fire. Cheers erupted, but Harris raised a hand to quiet them. "It's not over yet," he said, pointing to the sky. The Empire's remaining ships began to retreat, their morale shattered by the loss of their flagship. But Harris knew this was only a temporary victory. In the war room, the engineer reported, "The distress signal has been sent. Other colonies will hear us. Reinforcements will come." Harris nodded. "Good. We've shown the Empire that humanity won't go quietly. But this is just the beginning." As the dust settled, the colonists began to rebuild, their resolve stronger than ever. They had faced the might of the Galactic Empire and survived. Harris stood outside the command center, gazing at the stars. "They'll be back," he said quietly. "And when they come, we'll be ready."